Hello everyone, Tactical Itch here. Welcome back to another Total Warhammer multiplayer online battle. Today we have a battle from a previous Wednesday faction wars, this time between Borain as the Nurgle army versus Inkars as the Vampire Coast. For the army build here, we already have some vanguard action going, with Pestigors providing a solid front line and a couple Nurglings, actually 3 Nurglings to boost up the numbers of the Nurgle infantry unit. And on the far side, there we have some Vanguard deployed Chaos Warhounds with Poison and Chaos Furies of Nurgle, providing that Vanguard mobility to jump on to those Vampire Coast gun lines and shut down their shooting. Other than that, a couple Plogers, Plague Ogres, hiding in the tree lines for that anti-large armor piercing to perhaps hunt down enemy crabs. Leading the army, we have a Nurgle Sorcerer of course, Nurgle Magic, with the Stream of Corruption to clear out enemy infantry, especially a ton of these zombie chav. For the Vampire Coast army here, we have a Pirate Deckhand Mob frontline, providing the numbers and meat shield to protect a second line of handgunners. Further back, we have the Artillery, Carronade, and a single Queen Bess, providing that devastating firepower to nuke enemy infantry. Other than that, protecting those missile units, we have some animated hulks and the Lamprey's Revenge for the mass and slightly more speed than your typical infantry to intercept enemy dogs. There's also a single unit of Death Gods with pole arms to deal with any possible Nurgle monsters. Leading the army, we have Aranessa Assault Spite with the Spearfisher's Net, and that's it for her abilities and items, just the net to limit enemy movement. For the spellcasting department, there's a single lore of the Deep Vampire Fleet Captain, with no spells other than Vangheist Revenge, going all in on the AoE win spell. And yeah, that's it for the army builds. Now let's get the battle started. With the surprise Nurgle Vanguard, there is no marching phase, and all those Pestigors Nurglings are just going straight after the Vampire Coast lines. At the back, the Chaos Warhounds with Poison are also teasing the Vampire Coast defenses a bit, but it seems like they're not going into melee. Instead, they're backing off, while the Animated Hulks and Death Gods, having the attacking order onto the Warhounds, are being lured out of position, exposing more gaps in the Vampire Coast backline defenses, and perhaps the Chaos Furies can exploit that. Anyways, in the front line, the Pestigors and Nurglings are stuck on the Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs, though it seems like these Deckhand mobs are receiving more friendly fire from Queen Bess than actual damage from Queen Bess to the Nurgling. So very unfortunately for the Deckhand mobs over here. While at the same time, Furies, Warhounds are all jumping on to those Vampire Coast backline units, trying to shut down the handgunners' crossfire, and Borain doing a really good job with exploiting those opening in the backline defenses. However, Vangheist's Revenge onto the front line here. Pestigors, Nurglings are all stuck onto the same blob, doing devastating damage with the Vanguard's Revenge. Very nice placement of the spell from the Vampire Coast player. Inkars basically put 4 whole units of enemy infantry out of commission. Frolicus Bubonic, another unit of Nurgling, and 2 units of Pestigors all suffered heavy casualties from the Vanguard's Revenge. The Nurglings are already fading away from reality, and the Pestigors are not going to hold long in melee either, and that puts the Nurgle forces in a heavy disadvantage already on the balance of power, not even 2 minutes into the game. Plogers are finally getting close to the enemies, but a Spearfisher's Net preventing them from reinforcing the nearby engagements. Handguns are crumbling away, but the backline defenses are back after the Death Gods and Animated Hulks realizing that the Warhounds are just a lure. They are now trying to cut down some Chaos Furies and re-secure the Queen Bess artillery. Another shot onto the Plogers this time from Queen Bess, but not doing a whole lot of damage. Plogers are now free from the Spearfisher's Net over here and are free to hack down nearby enemy targets. The Nurglings and Pestigors are all piling onto the backline. At this point, the Vampire Coast gun lines are mostly shut down. Actually, none of them are even present anymore other than Queen Bess and the Lamprey's Revenge. And that gives the Nurgle army a slight bit of respite, as they don't have to worry about AP fire anymore. But the real problem is, of course, this unit of Death Gods. It is now a big blob of melee fight here. Nurglings, Plogers, Animated Hulks, even the Chaos Warhounds are in, and everyone is trying to fight around the Queen Bess model. Basically, this has turned into somewhat like a conquest mode where everyone fight around a single point. And of course, with the elite Death Gods acting as an anchor in this engagement, the Vampire Coast definitely have an advantage here. Lamprey's Revenge fending off some Warhounds at the back there, though they are desperately needed in this central blob fight. This is where the most important stuff goes on here. More Plogers are engaging, and there's a fecundity healing all the nearby Nurgle units over here, giving them some extra HP, especially the Nurglings, sustaining them, allowing them to act as infantry mid-shields for those relatively healthy Plogers a little longer in this fight against the Death Gods. Not exactly the tankiest unit, the Plogers can really use some bodies to absorb damage for them. Another Spearfisher's net, this time just trying to reduce the melee defense of the Plague Ogres, making the Animated Hawks and the Death Gods doing more efficient damage against these rather elite Nurgle monstrous infantry. They basically have the same melee stats as the Man-Eater equivalent, and they also have immune to psychology, making them a very reliable anti-monster unit. Unfortunately, none of those are useful against the Death Gods. Instead, they're just being punished by those elite halberd anti-large. More animated hawks are rushing in, same for some regrouped pestigores. Both sides are flooring all the resources they can into the middle blob fight. Whoever wins this blob fight will be deciding the outcome of battle. A taunt from the Vampire Fleet Captain, reducing the melee defenses of the Plague Ogres, making them even more vulnerable to damage. Once again, the Nurglings and pestigores are all blobbed up, creating the perfect opportunity for a Vangheist revenge. A beautiful cast once more, devastating these remaining Nurglings. One of them straight up started fading away. Pestigores are routing. This triggers a chain rout as another unit of Nurgling is suffering from demonic instability. That leads to a chain rout possibly onto the Plague Ogres as well, as they are taking more and more damage, being surrounded and overwhelmed by enemy units while their friendlies are running away, putting a dent on their leadership. Now, one of the Plague Ogres are routed, and the other is also not holding for long, as their HP and leadership are both running out, leaving pretty much only the Nurgle Sorcerer Lord in the fight. He might have very strong self-regeneration capabilities with the Crown of Everlasting Conquest, but he's definitely not a strong combatant that can carry the entire fight on his own. Death Gods have anti-large armor piercing to hack him down as he is on a horseback, while the Lamprey's Revenge shotguns are gonna do some really effective damage against him. So yeah, it is pretty much the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle being overwhelmed by the remaining forces of the Vampire Coast, giving the Vampire Coast army a victory. GG to both Borain and Incause for this very fun Nurgle Vanguard versus Vampire box battle. And let's have a look at the army performances. The Nurgle army did very well with the initial rush with the mobility, successfully shutting down those Vampire Coast gun lines. But unfortunately, with all the attention on the backline mobility, the Nurgle army made a few mistakes in their front line, blobbing up their Pestigores and Nurglings a bit too much, making them the prime target for Vangheist Revenges, and that devastated the Pestigores as the spell wreaked havoc among their lines, basically taking out these very important armor-piercing infantry that could have taken down the Death Gods in the late game, and instead only the Plague Ogres remain in the late game, which are not ideal to go up against an elite self-healing halberd infantry. While on the other side, for the Vampire Coast, the Vangheist Revenges, of course, did some amazing damage, cleared out a ton of Nurgle infantry, especially those Pestigores, making sure that the Death Gods can fight against enemy large targets without armor-piercing units going against them. While the handguns got shut down pretty fast, so not much to say about them, but the Death Gods carried the game in the end, and of course the Lamprey's Revenge as well. As usual, very solid units. Queen Bess though didn't do much damage other than friendly fire. And yeah, that's it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed this Total Warhammer multiplayer replay battle. And if you want to see more similar content, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Witch, signing out.